What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Movement Mindset powered by Station Athletics. I'm Chris Hardenberg here with Keith Wittenstein.
Hello.
Wittenstein?
Wittenstein, Stein.
Wittenstein.
It's all good.
So Keith is a coach at one of our locations. He coaches at the Roseland location. I wanted to bring Keith on because he is, and I mean this in the nicest way possible, an OG in the CrossFit fitness space. And so I thought he would bring a unique perspective to coaching, to fitness in general, because not only does he coach for us, but he is a on the CrossFit seminar staff. So if you're someone who's done, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, but if you're someone who's done a level 1, 2, 3, whatever within the tri-state area, you've probably had Keith as your instructor, Coach Panda on Instagram. So Keith, let's just kind of start with some background. Like, who are you? What got you into CrossFit? What is your background? Stuff like that.
Great. I got into CrossFit almost from the inception because I heard about CrossFit through BJ Penn, who was a famous
Really?
UFC fighter.
I did not know you knew BJ.
I don't know him personally.
Okay.
But I was following him because my sort of fitness career starts at jiu-jitsu from 97. So I was doing jiu-jitsu back in 97, started teaching a little bit around like 99-ish. I was helping run the jiu-jitsu club up at Columbia University, was training there, was teaching yoga as well for many years. But I was following jiu-jitsu and that was my main sport. And BJ Penn was known as the prodigy because he got his black belt in 4 years. He was able to go right into the UFC. Well, he was the first non-Brazilian to win at the Worlds.
Wow.
And then he went right into the UFC and like smashed people right away. And I was like, everybody was talking about him. Like, what is this guy doing?
Yeah.
And he shouted out CrossFit a couple times. And I was like, well, I have to look into this because just doing like yoga and some like, bodybuilding stuff from the magazines and going to jiu-jitsu was not really getting me in the shape I wanted to be in.
Right.
So I went on the website, and this was early 2000s, and I was, had only known anything about fitness from reading, Men's Health and Muscle and Fitness magazines and stuff. And I'm reading about cleans and snatches and, Olympic lifting and all this other stuff on there. And I'm like, what is this? And I just sort of took a deep dive because it sounded cool. I started reading the CrossFit Journal articles. And I was like, this all sounds really neat. And then I started looking at the workouts and I was like, okay, well, here's something I could try, right? And I would try it and I'm like, this is terrible. I am so not fit. I'm so not able to do any of this.
Yeah.
And I'm watching like these like, little videos and reading the website. And they're like, well, this obviously looks like more fun with other people.
Sure.
And so I went on the message boards, on the CrossFit message boards at the time. It was a huge sort of internet community on there. And I was looking for people in New York that were doing CrossFit. And like 5 people responded. There was like 5 of us. And I was like, can we all meet in like Central Park and do a workout? And then this is probably like 2004 or something. 2003 or 2004, we went to Central Park on like a Sunday and we did some like Tabata squats and we did a run. There was one set of pull-up bars.
Okay.
So we would like run and then we would all try to do pull-ups. And then I think someone brought a kettlebell. So we like swang the kettlebell a bunch of times and we just like, a little, fitness date in the park.
Sure.
A couple of us, and we like took a picture and we sent it over to CrossFit and they're like, this is great. Like literally Greg.
All 4 people in an office are like, look at this. People are doing this stuff actually.
Yeah, exactly. And then, and it kind of, we would meet like occasional weekends in the park and then it got cold and my buddy, he had done some CrossFit out in Santa Cruz with Greg and I think he'd already had his level 1. So he was like, hey, we should like really take this seriously. I'm like, what does that mean? And then, and like literally we'd get a call from like Greg Glassman. He'd be like, hey, you guys are the CrossFit scene in New York. This is awesome. You guys have to affiliate. And we're like, what's that?
Yeah.
And it's like, why don't you come here and open a gym? He's like, no, that's not how this works. You guys are going to open a gym and be the hub of CrossFit in New York. And we're like, we are? And then, we started going to all these little gyms and getting thrown out because no one had ever seen people working out at like this kind of intensity and doing the stuff we were doing. So after like getting thrown out of a bunch of gyms, we found a martial arts school down in Chinatown that let us use their space. like a couple of days a week. And so we started running like a regular class out of there a couple of days a week. And it started to seem like it was gaining some steam. So my buddy got his dad to co-sign a spot in Midtown
Okay.
on like 39th Street on like the fourth floor, a little office space, about 1,100 square feet.
Wow.
And we just like brought our dumbbells and kettlebells from home, and we're like, okay, this is CrossFit NYC. He had affiliated us, and actually he had affiliated us first, and we were just running like random classes
Sure.
here and there. But then I did my level 1 in 2006, and we didn't even have a space yet. But like Greg was like, these are the guys from New York. And this is CrossFit NYC. We're like, yeah.
And it's just you guys like,
Yeah, exactly. With no space and,
Yeah.
and a bunch of kettlebells and working out in the park. And then finally we got a space there, and we like grew it like it seemed like overnight, but within like
Sure.
a year, it was just, we were bursting at the seams. Literally, we were like ruining the building. We were getting like constant like death threats from the people downstairs coming up and like, our ceiling is caving in and
Yeah.
you guys can't do that. And we're constantly being like served eviction notices and all this stuff. And finally we had to get out of there.
hmm
And then I parted ways with those guys. So this is around 2008 or 9. And then I took a couple people, we partnered up and opened up CrossFit Virtuosity
Okay.
in Brooklyn. And then finally the New York guys, like they found a space down Chelsea, Flatiron area. And we moved out to Brooklyn, and we were running stuff at Virtuosity. And then did that for several years, and then ended up getting on the training staff and then doing that.
Mhm.
So, but like I was in it from the early days when it was just totally underground and nobody knew about it, before Reebok, before the games, before all of that stuff. So it was super fun.
Yeah, that's really
Yeah.
cool. I think it's cool because like Dave and I have talked about it a bunch, how CrossFit has gone through a lot of evolutions.
Sure.
Not just as a business, but as a sport, but the training methodology, the principles have remained the same, I think. And so that's why I think what made it, I'll speak for myself. What made it attractive to me was it kind of broke down things from a training perspective that were not defined very well and made it very definitive and objective.
Mhm.
And then it gamified fitness, because for prior to that, and I don't want to date you, Keith, but back in 2000 and what'd you say, 2005, 2006,
Yeah.
I was in high school. So, it was basically like training was bodybuilding,
Mhm.
or you were training for like a ball sport. So you might do some agility stuff. You might do like hang cleans, but like the extent of Olympic lifting I knew was hang cleans. Like I didn't even know Olympic lifting as like a true sport. Right.
Right.
And so it was like, but the goal was like, okay, I'm either getting bigger, faster, and stronger for this ball sport, which again ends after a certain point. And then when that ends, it's like, okay, well, I'm doing it to like look good. Right. But for a lot of us, it was like that either doesn't hold your attention or only holds it for so long. And so when CrossFit came in and is like, no, you can do a workout and get a score, and then you could compare your friends and like nudge them and like make it pseudo competitive. It was like, for me, I was like, whoa, that's really fun.
Yeah.
And you kind of got into it when it was like you said, before we got on the mics, you called it like pirate CrossFit,
Yeah. Yeah.
because it was like no rules.
Yeah. I mean, it was more so than no rules. We were counterculture.
Yeah.
It was like we looked at everything that was going on in like the Globo gyms, the Crunches, and the New York sports clubs, and it was like they're just spinning their wheels. They're
Yeah.
sitting there looking in the mirror, like flexing their biceps, and it's like it's not applicable to real life, right? They don't have intensity. They're not doing full range of motion. They're not making it fun, right? They're not. There's no community, and we definitely. I mean, this was all from Greg. I mean, he lived through trying to coach people inside the walls of like Globo gyms, and was like every day, like people would be like, "You're doing this wrong.
Yeah.
What you're doing is crazy." Like, and he was like, "No, you guys are the crazy
Yeah.
ones." And it was very much like, yeah, in response to all this silly stuff that he saw going on in the gyms, and was just calling bullshit on it. And like, this is how people should really train. It's like, you should lift heavy, you should go fast, you should like make it fun, you should try new things, walk on your hands and learn new skills, not just for like, the party tricks, but it actually teaches you to be better coordinated and, you know, have better agility and balance and all this stuff. So it was really fun stuff, like right from the beginning, and very much like a big middle finger to all the big shiny magazines and the big
Yeah.
elbow gyms that were out there. And you know, one of the biggest evolutions is like all of us that started in the early days were very like we're like pirates and really like anti-establishment in
Yeah.
terms of the fitness industry. I mean, literally when we had CrossFit NYC, we opened our doors, all these trainers would come from New York Sports and Crunch and every place else that heard about CrossFit. And, you know, to say we were not welcoming is an understatement. I mean, we were welcoming in that we're like, welcome, come on. And then we would try to kill them.
Yeah.
Literally, like, let's see what you're really made of. And we would test them with like, I mean, it was like real simple stuff. It's like, hey, we're going to do Cindy,
Right.
right? Let's 20 minutes of pull-ups, push-ups, and squats. And like 7 minutes in, they'd be like tapping out.
Yeah.
We'd be like laughing our butts off and making fun of them. And all these people look great, right? All
Right.
these like diesel people come in, but they couldn't like do Tabata squats for 4 minutes without like, you know, falling over and
Right.
being in tears, or like just sort of shortening their range of motion where it was not even like they were doing squats. And we just had like a lot of fun with that. And but it was definitely like a little bit more of like a Fight Club type of thing. It's like, you know, you're in or you're out.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you get beat up and you want to come back, yeah, come on in.
And I feel like
and a lot of people would get beat up and just like never want
Yeah.
to see us again.
But I can feel like that's also a big difference in the industry as a whole, where CrossFit's become way more mainstream.
Yeah.
Is like back then it attracted people who were like hardcore, who were like wanted to do things differently. And so it was like you could actually do that to someone and still get them to sign up.
Yeah.
So it was like,
yeah, exactly.
because it was like, oh, I found something and unlocked something I didn't know. Like that's what got me and that's what got you. And it was like, you were doing jujitsu. I had just come out of collegiate wrestling about a year prior. And so I was like, I'm in good shape.
Yeah.
You were probably like, I'm in good shape. And then
I
you
wasn't
okay,
but
well,
I quickly got there.
yeah,
you
but
know?
then it's like you do a CrossFit workout and it's like, wait, this is different.
Yeah.
So you kind of ran through the timeline of you being an affiliate owner, you know, running the affiliate in the park and then an office space, right? But now you're on seminar staff.
Yeah.
So you briefly glossed over, then I got involved with CrossFit. How did that happen?
So, again, there's a lot of evolution. The early CrossFit seminars were like a little bit of that, like, hey, come check this out. And they would try to kill you at the seminars. They would
Right.
do like 2 workouts a day, and they would beat you up and shovel you back into your car, send you to the airport. But it was always fun because, like, again, we didn't have boxes on every corner.
Right.
So, like, I only knew like the 20 or 30 people I was like CrossFitting with on the regular, and then I went out to Santa Cruz and I met all these people from the internet and that I'd seen on the CrossFit website, and Greg and Nicole and Annie Sakamoto and all these wonderful people that I've only seen on there, and all these other people that I knew from the message boards.
Right.
And we're like, oh my God. And we were like,
that's what you look like. Now I can see you.
yeah, and it was really fun. And then a few months later, they were coming like to the East Coast. And I was like, oh, let's go to the East Coast like summer. Because for a while they were just in Santa Cruz, and maybe like they held 1 or 2 at like a police station in Colorado. But they then started taking it on the road, and then I would show up to another seminar. And when you showed up to a second seminar, they would usually give you a little more responsibility. You've been here before. Hey, you're going to be like an assistant coach this time. And then so there would be like 100 people at this seminar, but like 50 of them were like new first timers, and then like 30 of them were like repeats that were kind of assisting and helping out because they've done it before. And then there was like the 10 or so people that Greg had, his cadre of trainers and people that were working with him. And so I went to like 3 or 4 seminars and just kept showing up. They kept giving me more stuff to do and kind of putting me to work. And it was at this time, like I'd met all the specialty courses.
Okay.
Right? Because initially there wasn't any specialty courses.
Yeah.
It was just like, hey, here's the CrossFit Level 1 seminar. But then like my seminar was the last 3-day CrossFit seminar.
Okay.
Then they went down to 2 days. And The reason it was 3 days is because they started bringing in, Greg always brought like his friends over and was like, oh, here's, Mark Ripito, and here's Angela, she's going to teach you how to row. And here's Coach Bergner, he's going to teach you how to Olympic lift. And here's Mike Rutherford, he's going to put you through a dumbbell workout. And here's Jeff Martone, and he's going to do some kettlebells with you. So each seminar was just like a
was almost
potpourri of like
specialists,
a
basically.
specialist. And he says, we're kicking them all out and they're going to do their own seminars.
Okay.
So I pop into the level ones like every 6 months when they would do something that was kind of convenient. And then I started going to all the specialty seminars as soon as they came out. And then I ended up working on the specialty seminars
Okay.
because I'd show up to like Coach Bergner's seminar and do the whole thing. And then he was coming out to the East Coast and I'd reach out and be like, hey, Coach B, you're coming out to the East Coast. Do you need anything? He's like, why don't you come and help me out? I'm like, thanks, Coach. All right.
Yeah.
I just show up and he put me to work. Same with like the gymnastics seminar. I reach out to Tucker. Hey, you need anything while you're in Boston? I'm going to come up to that seminar. He's like, oh, you're going to assist me. I'm like, great. Right. Because I'd show up to, a seminar and they could see I could coach and like follow directions and
Yeah.
like, demo some stuff. They're like, okay, yeah, we'll put you to work. And I just so I started working with Jeff Martone. I started working with Tucker on the gymnastics seminar. I started working with Coach B. I worked with Mark Ripito. So I started working all these specialty seminars sort of periodically when there was something like, hey, we need someone to come up to Canada. I'm like, oh yeah, I'll come.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. Let's do it. But then like in that time, this was between like 2008 and 2010, I was doing all the specialty work. And then I noticed like they'd put together like a level 1 staff. So Greg pulled off the road and then they had all these red shirts just running seminars.
Right.
And I was like, man, I want to do that.
Yeah.
So I started reaching out to, the people at HQ. I was like, how do I get back on the seminar staff working the level 1s? Cause I want to do that.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, we have like an intern process. So I went through the process. I kept showing up and they kept, giving me some responsibilities, and then be like, come back in another couple months and we'll see. And I just kept showing up. And then finally I reached out to Dave Castro because I'd done like 4 or 5 internships.
Okay.
And I kind of reached out sort of in a very sort of gentle way. Cause like talking to Dave can be like poking a bear sometimes, right? Either you get like a one-word response with like, thanks, Dave,
Yeah.
or like this time I kind of poked the bear because I was like, hey, so I've been doing these internships. I don't have any idea of like where this is going, when I can expect to hear, something. And he asked me a question about my relationship with Mark Ripito, who had fallen out of favor with CrossFit. There was a big split there. And I was like, I don't, have any relationship with Mark anymore. Like, we parted ways. And he goes, and I sort of was trying to be sort of diplomatic. I'm like, I know you guys have had some differences, or you don't, or something. And Dave's response was very like, I don't know, just very blunt and like not very didn't like my phrasing of how I characterize the relationship or whatever. So, and I was like, oh no, I pissed off Dave. I was like, I'm done. I'm not getting on staff. And this is when the regionals were up in Albany.
Yes. Yep.
Like outdoors at CrossFit Albany in their parking lot. And I remember I was going up there to judge, and Dave was doing the circuit, going to all the regionals, and Dave was showing up that day. And I was like, oh no. I was like, Dave's going to be here. I'm asking all my friends, what do I do? Dave's pissed at me.
He's going to beat me up.
I know. And they're like, no, Dave likes you. He's fine. Don't worry about it. And then I was like, I was sweating bullets the whole time until he showed up. And he showed up and I went over to him and he just gave me a hug. He's like, don't worry about it. You're on staff. You'll get the email. What? Yeah. He's like, yeah, you'll be hired. We'll send you the email like in a couple of days. I'm like, oh shit, thanks.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, it was super fun. So that's how I found out I was on staff. And like a couple of weeks later, I got a box of like stuff with like some red shirts in it and stuff. Yeah.
That's cool. What's cool about that is like, it almost sounds like things were running at that point in time, Keith, and if it's miscategorized, you could correct me. Almost like a standalone CrossFit gym would run now. Like it's like come in, you're gonna do an internship. It's like, we'll go over some things, and if you hit these markers, we'll get you on staff.
Yeah.
And it's like you look at CrossFit now, or even in the heat when it was like really booming, like late 2010s, like your 2016, 17, 18. It's like, I'm sure there was an extensive vetting process, and it was really hard to even apply to become a red shirt. Right. Yeah. And that was like kind of the thing. Like, I remember when I got my level 1, it was 2014. And so like like I'm trying to remember. I know James Hobart was there. He ran mine. Camille was on staff. I'm blanking on her husband's name
Dave.
now. Dave was on
Dave
staff.
Lipson, yep.
And so it was like as a new CrossFit person, you looked at the red shirts like they walked on water. You know what I mean? And so it's like it's funny to think like going way further back that it's like you went and talked directly to Dave Castro and he was like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna get you the email you're on."
Yeah.
It's like kind of cool to think about, man, the grassroots. Because again, at this point, we're 20 plus years removed from where CrossFit started. It for me, it's cool to look back and be like the grassroots of where the whole movement began. And it's cool to think about that you were um, seeing all that unfold when you kind of got started. So now you're on seminar staff. And so you're in a cool position where you're not, I mean, you coach for us.
Yeah.
And I do want to kind of go over that in a little bit. But I would venture to say you're spending way more of your time coaching coaches than you
Yeah.
are coaching clients. What has that been like? And what do you enjoy about coaching coaches to be better coaches?
That's a good question. Coaches are different in that the way I see it, it's like, well, you want to make this your job,
Yeah.
right? So, we try to really up your game as much as we can, right? So it's a lot of feedback, a lot of pushing you to, notice the weak spots in your coaching, right? So you got to give them a lot of feedback, and it's unfortunately very, it's painful sometimes to receive feedback
Yeah.
on stuff, especially when you care about it enough that you want this to be your job. But at the same time, if you care about it enough, you want to be better at it.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit, little less delicate and a little more like, hey, let's not sugarcoat this. Here's what you need to work on.
Yep.
Right. And you push people towards that. And, and over the years, I've gotten hopefully a little bit better at delivering feedback. It's still hard sometimes, right? Sometimes you're just like, wow, there's no nice way to put this.
That was awful.
Right. But I mean, but it's still like you're a little more direct and straight to the point when it comes to coaching coaches. Whereas a member is different in that they're paying to be there and they don't have the same goals necessarily. They just want to have some fun and work out for an hour. Or maybe they do have some goals, but they're not as bought in necessarily to the whole dynamic of coaching sometimes. Right? They don't come from a sports background or someplace where you get a lot of immediate feedback. And, and they interpret that as like, why is this guy bothering me?
Yeah.
Why is he telling me I suck so bad at this? And, I just want to work out. It's like, yeah. So it's really trying to figure out how to deliver what they need disguised as what they want.
Sure.
Right. And give them feedback in a way that's, a little, easier to manage.
Yeah.
Which, is challenging. And also understanding there's usually like a longer timeline with athletes at a gym, right? I don't have to fix everything about your movement today.
Right.
Right. But if I have a coach for a weekend and I'm, it's like, I'm not going to give you feedback. I'm not going to be coming to your classes every month to give you more feedback. So I got to kind of give you a bunch of stuff to work on right now and send you on your way versus like, hey, let's focus on this right now with an athlete in the gym. It was like, hey, let's just try to get your squat a little lower today.
Yeah.
And let's not go.
And it's funny you say that because it's like, the way I look at it is that's also a good coaching. Like when you're coaching a client, the worst thing you could do is be like, all right, hey, I'm Keith. I've noticed 8 points of performance you're messing up and I'm going to go over all 8 with you right now.
Yeah.
Then they're just like, you end up doing none of it right. And so it's like, okay, hey, let's pick the lowest hanging fruit or the one that's like, hey, to keep you safe, like you got to do this, right?
Yeah.
But, would you say how do I put this? Like the directness you're able to use with coaches, does that speak to your personality better that it's like, listen, I don't got to sugarcoat it. Like you're paying to be here to be a better coach. So I'm going to shoot it to you friggin' straight.
Yeah. I do have a bluntness about me and, yeah. And, and I'm fluent in sarcasm. So, and, for a lot of people that resonates well, but, I do have to sort of recognize when I need to pull that back.
Yeah.
And just, put on the kid gloves and be a little more delicate. And I've definitely gotten better at that. Having children has helped, and having a wife that is like the queen of empathy also helps. So I sit around and I watch her interact with our kids, and we'll interact and have tough conversations with like random people, and I'm like, oh, so that's how
So
you
that's
do
what
it.
it looks like.
That's
Got
what,
it.
okay. So I need
Has she ever looked at you and been like, what did you just say? Like,
all the time, all the time.
I feel like anytime you have a spousal relationship where one is very empathetic and the other one is not, that's usually the case. Like the non-empathetic one just says things and the other one's like, how could you say that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, and I at least I'm willing to take the advice and the feedback. So there's times when she's like, you gotta apologize or do
Yeah.
something different. I'm like, yeah, you're right. And then I'll go and try to make it right. But there are also times where she can't believe I said something to somebody, but it turns around, it's like the exact thing that they needed to hear.
Right.
And she's like, I can't believe you get away with saying that. And it helps her to like, I mean, it definitely is, I'm the winner in this relationship in terms of getting the most bang for the buck. But when she sees how like direct I can be and stuff, she also, because she can be a people pleaser a little bit too much. So she takes a little bit of notes from like, oh, you can actually tell people straight up sometimes exactly what's up. So
Yeah.
so we, but I definitely learn more from the relationship. And she learns more what not to do most of the time from watching me.
So you're whether you like it or not, in your position, you're a role model for coaches. You're an educator of coaches. So I'm curious, what is your thoughts and philosophies around the art of coaching?
That's a good question. I mean, like I said, the art of it is really one like managing people and managing sort of the dialogue and the interactions, and they're managing their feelings around feedback and stuff. So that's really for me much more of an art form,
Mhm.
like being able to read like, can I push them here a little bit more, or do I have to back off, and what's the best way to say this, or is this not even worth,
Right.
you know because I have my pet peeves, and sometimes like I'll get like ramped up and be like, I can't stop myself from like dealing with this or saying something about like this thing, like watching people like just no rep an entire workout.
Right.
Like none of those squats counted. None of those, wall balls hit the target. None of those, and I can get really bent out of shape sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, hey, get a little lower. Hey, hit the target, or let's scale this, and just people are just, it just bounces off them like, Superman and bullets. It's like nothing I say is like impacting these people. And, most of the time I'm like, okay, I'm going to let it slide. But every once in a while I get wrapped around the axle and I need to like, because it's like, I mean, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's the art of coaching for me, is like really managing like my own, is like, is this a me problem or is this a them problem?
Sure.
And managing the relationships. So I think that's where the technical aspect of coaching for me is easy.
Yeah.
Like I've, because I started teaching, I think I started teaching jujitsu first, like in terms of like I was running like a small club, and teaching jujitsu is very specific and detailed.
It's super technical.
Super technical. So like, after you've taught like, how to throw on a triangle or an omoplata or some like technical jujitsu move, it's like, well, lifting a barbell in a straight line. It's like, come on, just it's
Yeah,
not.
the barbell doesn't fight back like
Yeah,
that one else.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it was actually a lot easier. So seeing and correcting, and yoga is the same way too. Like I trained in New York with a lot of very technical yoga people.
Okay.
Like the heyday of yoga in New York, some will say it's probably the 80s or 90s, but like the 2000s were like, it was just a mecca.
Uh-huh.
Like every yoga instructor, and there was like so many great teachers and so many like technical yoga teachers that were like, where to put which toe to be pressing into, like, and and all the cues and all the breath and stuff. So I was able to absorb lots of ability to like teach and see a group of people, and also give very technical direction to a group of people all at once, while like still keeping the class moving.
Yeah.
Right. And so like teaching CrossFit, like the technical aspects of it was not that challenging.
Yeah.
It's like once I kind of figured out what a snatch was, and and how to do a clean and a deadlift and a squat, like, oh, this stuff is pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Uh, uh, but the hard part is getting other people to see the same stuff or be able to, you know, uh, look for the same things. And I just find that most people don't have as skilled an eye at seeing that. So now it's like, how can I translate the stuff I'm seeing and the stuff that comes easy to me and make it easy for somebody else to see, which like took a lot of work because it's like, look at that. It's so easy.
It's right in front of you.
And they're like, I don't see it. I'm like, okay. So I really had to learn how to verbalize what I was seeing and what like draws my attention, and how you can tell somebody's a little bit misaligned or something's out of place. Like, look at the shirt. The shirt rises more on the front. You can see their belly button, but the shirt is tucked in the back.
Mm.
That means they're overextended.
Huh.
Right? Or the line of the waistband is tilted down. That means their pelvis is in the wrong position. You got to have the waistband level. And people are like, huh?
Yeah.
And like, look at it. And then you watch a bunch of people and you're still like, oh yeah, the shirt is, shorter in the front than the back. They're overextended.
Huh.
Or, I can look at, the wrinkles in the shirt and tell whether your back is engaged or not engaged
Interesting.
by the wrinkles in your shirt. And people are like, what? Look here. Look, when their back's not engaged, the shirt goes smooth. And look, when they engage their back, it wrinkles.
Yeah.
So like you're sitting there taking out a protractor, trying to figure out if their back is like engaged. It's like,
just look right here.
Look right here. And they're like, oh, like
Yeah.
I try to distill like a lot of stuff to something very simple and easily like applicable to everybody, and everybody can see that. And that's taken a lot of work, but it came very relatively naturally to me, but then trying to describe it was a lot of work.
Yeah.
And try to make it simple, like so that people can like register that.
It's cool that you say that because, Dave and I have talked a bunch on people coming into the gym, right?
Right.
And how people coming to the gym can have a leg up on other people who come into the gym physically because it's like, oh, well, you played a sport and you never did anything, right? And so it's like, to be honest, I've never thought too much into it that on the coaching side, but as you say it, it's like that can apply to coaches too, where it's like, I fell in love with CrossFit and I want to coach CrossFit. Well, have you coached anything? No, I just kind of went to the gym. I was an accountant and now I'm doing this, right? Versus, I grew up a wrestler and so I've dabbled in jujitsu, and it's like, I learned even in between those two martial arts, jujitsu is way more technical, precise, like, because as a wrestler, you can be super explosive and be good.
Yeah.
And so, whereas like jujitsu, like I could be super explosive, blast you off the floor, slam you on the floor, and then because you're super technical, you sweep something and put me into a choke or an armbar or something like that. Yeah. And so it's interesting to think about how like, okay, being that you started it in yoga and jujitsu, it's like, okay, your eye was trained to look at like little pressure points or little movements of a limb or little wrinkles in a shirt and be like, oh, well, this is happening, which means this is going to happen. So I have to go here. So that thought process, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps ahead to try to get someone in a submission, as an example, when you translate to a barbell, which we said doesn't fight back, although some people might argue that it does, is like, it's like, okay, that's where it's like, okay, cool. I can step in and have that really technical aspect to do that. And I think that's really, really cool.
Also as like not growing up an athlete, I had to learn a lot of this stuff like on my own.
Yeah.
Right. And I had to really put in like extra hours to learn how to do a snatch or a clean. Like I remember just sitting there with like a training bar, and light weights and just like snatching over and over again and like just, working on all the different positions and really just trying to figure out what the hell is it? and again, this is like early 2000, like when I started learning about this stuff, like there wasn't like a million YouTube. I don't even think YouTube was a thing.
Yeah.
Like when I first started, like you couldn't find tutorials on this. I was like reading articles and looking at little tiny thumbnail gifs of like people like doing a snatch over and over again and trying to figure out what the heck was going on. I mean, this is, pre-Rogue, there was, USAW was around, but they were like very hard to find a USAW seminar or any place in the city that had bumper plates that you could lift at and try any of this stuff. So it was really like a lot of figuring this stuff out on my own, which, really helped a lot because now it's like, oh, I've gone through the process of figuring all this stuff out. Like I can turn that around and teach that to somebody else. But when it comes naturally to some people, this is why a lot of great athletes don't always translate to great
I was
coaches
just
because it
about to
just
say that. Yeah.
it comes so naturally to them. They don't know how to explain it to somebody else.
Right.
But like I literally was like, I basically learned how to clean and snatch from a book, you know, it was like, which is not the ideal way to
No,
do it, but it's
no.
like, and then, you know, I finally got some videos and I'm watching, I'm like, okay, and here's all these things. And I just went and like practiced.
I just envisioned Keith like, you know, those flip books where you like flip them and it's like the guy moving.
Yeah.
I envision him doing this like, okay, that's what that looks like.
Yeah.
So you've been around the coaching scene for a long time and
Yeah.
you're still doing it. What keeps you coming back? Like, what is your favorite part about coaching?
It's just fun. It's just fun. And like I get a real thrill out of getting people to do something that they couldn't do before they met me. Right.
Yeah.
It was like, here, you know, you can't walk on your hands. Let me help you. Like, let's, you know, start from square one and let's figure out where we need to work on. Here's a drill or, whatever it is, like just getting people, you know, to just do something that they weren't doing before, even like to get them out of pain. Like sometimes it's like, why does it hurt when I do this? Well, let me watch you do that.
Yeah.
Oh, well, here's a reason why that might be hurting because you're doing this and this. And I show them another way to do it. And they're like, oh, I picked that up and it didn't hurt. I'm like, well, great. Here we are.
Yeah.
So I really just, I like that. I'm a nerd and I'm kind of a know-it-all. Right. So like, but it doesn't do me any good having all this information on my head and just spouting comments on the internet doesn't do anybody any good. But if I can actually use some of this information to help you, you know, get a little fitter, you know, lift a little more weight or, you know, do something, get a new party trick that you didn't have before, that's super fun for me.
You could coach probably almost anywhere.
Yeah.
And we talked about this off air where it was like, I got a hold of you just honestly, I was aware of you, but like I reached out to you now realizing, oh, Keith is this guy? You know, so I reached out to you found your name on the CrossFit Level 1 directory, reached out like, hey, we're looking for coaches. And I remember telling Quan that you were interested and he was like, that guy? I was like, yeah, who is that guy? And he's like, he friggin' did my level 1 and level 2. So what made you even interested in coaching for us?
Oh, good question. I mean, honestly, like I think I saw probably your first message on Messenger or Instagram or something. I probably ignored it.
Yeah.
It was probably spam or
Yeah.
something. I was like, oh no, wait, this is like a real gym. And then I was like, okay, and I was just, you know, looking for another sort of place to coach. I came in finally and had like shadowed like a 12 o'clock class. I was like, okay, these are like people getting after it. And
Yeah.
there's, you know, the everyday folks. And then there's the fit people in here in the same class, just working out, throwing down together. I was like, this is a good vibe.
Cool.
Yeah.
So we're coming up towards the end of this, Keith, but what I wanted to do is like, again, you mentioned it. We have a wealth of knowledge in this head.
Right.
And I want to kind of like boil some of that down. So let me ask this two different ways or for two different people, I'll say. If I'm a coach listening,
Right.
if you could give them 1 to 2 nuggets of like, hey, you're a coach, like these are like 1 or 2 things you absolutely have to do, what would it be?
Great. This is what I tell people at the level 2, and I stand by this. It's like you have probably the best teaching tool in your pocket, which is your phone. Take your phone out, hit record, video yourself doing the movement 5 times from the front, 5 times from the side, and go back and watch it. Wipe away the tears and then figure out how you can do it better. Learn to move better. Watch yourself. Most people suffer from they coach stuff and then they don't do what they're telling their athletes to do. I see it all the time. It's like, oh, you should keep your back straight and your back's rounded.
Yeah.
Oh, you keep the bar against your legs and like the bar is drifting away. Like, you know, all these things, you say them all the time, but you don't actually demo them. Like, hey, squat below parallel and your squat's like 2 inches high.
Right.
Go home and work on your movement. And just by coaching yourself through it, spotting the flaws, fixing them, making your movement better will go a long way to helping you coach other people because you'll be able to spot the flaws much quicker after you've done it. And you'll be able to fix people much quicker because you've done the work on yourself.
Yeah.
And it'll make you a better mover. It'll make you understand things because then you'll run into stuff like, well, but I thought I was supposed to do it like this, but when I do it like this, it feels different and I like this better. And then you start exploring why did they tell me to do it like this when I like to do it like that? And then you come up with a reason that's, valid,
Mhm.
right? You might like, cause you don't have to coach everything the same way somebody else coached it. And you could find that like, oh, actually, when I go my hands wider or I don't use my thumb or I do this, whatever it is, it's like the movement police aren't going to come and grab you, right? So you can coach things a lot of different ways, but you should have a reason for doing that.
Yeah.
Especially, and that one of the best reasons is because this is what I do and this works for me. When I think about this helps me do this move or whatever.
And I think that's important because when you're coaching, right, you can't use the same cue or the same position for every person because every person's their body's built differently.
Right.
And a lot of coaching is like, okay, I want to get you to the same points of performance, maybe. So like I'm doing a clean, like I need to get you to triple extension before you start to pull under the bar, right? But for some reason, and it's kind of what also makes coaching an art, is like I could say the same cue to you and the same cue to JJ and get two different movement responses.
Yeah.
And so it's like, oh, I'm sure you've experienced this. It's like, ooh, that cue didn't work for you there, did it? All right, let's try something new here. And it's like you have to go into this Rolodex of like, how do I phrase this, feel this, push this, move this, demo this differently so that your brain interprets what I'm saying in a way that your body moves the way I need it to is like both, I think, super challenging, but super fun about coaching. So it's cool that it's a great point of performance, I'll say, for someone looking to get better at coaching. The second thing is we have a lot of members who listen.
Yeah.
And so if you were like, hey, here's 1 or 2 nuggets, you're a member, like if I could tell you anything, this is what it would be.
Uh, I think it's being a little more coachable and a little more flexible, right? Because people kind of, my experience generally, if I'm going to generalize, is that people kind of find one way to do things and they hit save on it and they don't think about it again,
Yeah.
right? This is the way I squat. I've always squatted like this and I'm not going to change my squat. Or this is the way I push presses. I've always push press like this. I learned it once in foundations and I never bothered to revisit it and
Yeah.
try. And like the bar went up and it was fine and I didn't die. So therefore I must have done it right. And I'm not going to look at this any further.
Sure.
And that doesn't like lead to growth. That doesn't lead to superior performance. It doesn't lead to just, uh, it's just a dead end,
Yeah.
right? And if you really want to be fitter, you really want to move better, be safer, it's like, take a little weight off the bar, just slow down a little bit and try moving a little differently. Play with that a little bit. And you might find that like, oh, actually what coach said might have actually helped me a little bit. Right.
Mhm.
Or like this coach is out of his mind. And then I like it this way. And you can find, your way of doing things. But I think being open and more flexible to stuff, like I find that and just being coachable as a general life skill is probably going to lead to better outcomes in every aspect of your life if you kind of take advice from somebody who's kind of been down that road and be like, you know what you could try doing is like, saving some money for a rainy day. I was like, no, fuck that.
I don't need to save any money.
And then the rainy day comes, I'm like, damn, I'm broke again.
Yeah, yeah.
And then it's like, I should have listened, right? And so you have enough of those experiences, hopefully you start taking the coaching advice, and being a little more flexible and trying new things. Because I mean, I don't coach the same way I did 20 years ago.
I would hope not.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't do anything this. My jujitsu is not the same as it was 20 years ago. And nothing in my life is the same as it was 20 years ago. I've changed dramatically. I mean, for better, for worse. And, some people will say I haven't changed enough.
If your wife is listening, for better.
Yeah. but I think that's, and we all have people in our lives that are the same people that they were in high school, like our parents or something. And like, they still tell the same jokes and they're still, and at some point it's like, it's old.
Yeah.
Like you got to grow and adapt and become a new person. And I think being open to that is really helpful. So that's the one thing. It's like, where it's like, yeah, maybe you don't want to take that advice from me. I get that, but like try doing something different. Like go to a seminar, go learn from somebody else and try to learn how to do things a different way. Cause I think that's fun and it keeps us growing and keeps us I mean, as we're growing older, we're actually, I think, getting younger because we're still firing more neurons,
Mhm.
right? So I appreciate like trying to learn new languages or try to read new topics that I've never read before and try to learn new things.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, thank you.
Anything we missed that you want to get out there before we hop off the mics?
Gosh, I don't know. No, I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to. I'm like really dig working with you guys. It's just it's a fun environment. It's a fun space. The community is really nice. Everybody at the gym has been really cool. So I'm a little sad that I'm not there more often because I like teach like 2 classes and then I'm like my schedule's kind of tied up right now. But summer's here and I'm like I got to get there more often.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I made it to a Friday Night Lights. That was super fun during the open, and like so I'm trying to just get around the gym a little more.
Cool.
So that's my.
So listen, guys, if you are Keith right now at the time of filming is coaching 2 noon classes a week at Roseland. He'll might be getting on the schedule a little bit more. We talked about that, but if you want some really top-notch coaching, show up for noon, Monday and Wednesday, I believe. You get taught by one of the best coaches in the tri-state area, if not the country, if not the world. So thanks for everything, Keith. Appreciate you coming in. As always, guys, like and subscribe to us on YouTube and Instagram. Give us a 5-star rating on the podcast platform you listen on. We'll see you at the gym.